for freedom. Hold up your banner for freedom.
Hello and welcome to a positive podcast coming to you from Hope Sussex community, the home of positive energy, with me, Katy Jo Murphin, and my very special guest today, the positive voice of Bash. Everybody goes, oh gosh, there's a round of applause. What's going on?
I was expecting that.
No, I know, I should warn you, really, shouldn't I?
Warn me for everything.
Thank you so much for coming on today's show, Bash. And your story personally is so incredibly inspiring that it's one that I think needs to be shared and people need to hear it. But it's also the message that you have, that you want to give people today, that is incredibly important. So I think we should start with you and your story and your journey from childhood to who you are today.
Oh, okay. So I was born to my mum and dad met in Thailand, came over in, I don't know, early 60s, I think, mid-60s, say. I think it was mid-60s. Brought over my three elder siblings. They're about 10 to 13 years older than me. Dad got everything he wanted. They moved to Hastings, got a place. He always wanted a restaurant. He always wanted a son. He got that. So I was the son, obviously. Got the restaurant, and then he died, which was a bit tragic. And so when he passed quite suddenly of bowel cancer, that left my mum with sort of 4 children, strange country, couldn't speak the language. So she sort of, with her existing mental health, it just compounded it, and she basically lost the plot. My older siblings left home as soon as they could. So one went to the army, one moved into Hastings. And my sister was with me for about a year. So she was like my sort of surrogate mum for a year, which was okay. It meant I got fed and watered and things like that. But then she had to go because it was just too toxic with her and my mum, which left me and my mum from the age. So I was the age of 4 till 7. And
So you were a really tiny baby when your dad passed away.
Yeah, I don't remember anything of him, which is really bad, actually. I wish I could have a couple of memories just to carry me through, but I don't. So I was with just me and my mum for 3 or 4 years, and because of all her addictions and mainly gambling and drink, she just didn't have the capacity to sort of hold herself in place and hold me in place. So I'd go for days, maybe weeks without seeing her, so I'd have to sort of fend for myself.
And you're 4 at this age? 4,
yeah,
5.
between sort of 4 and 7, maybe 8. But I just learned to look after myself, you know. I'd go to neighbours' places and they'd sort of like give me scraps maybe, and I'd walk from Hollington to Hastings, which is a good sort of 3 or 4 miles, and go and see my brother. So he'd feed me with his girlfriend. They would sort of like look after me, bath me, because I'd never have a bath. I don't ever remember brushing my teeth, which is why I had to have them all removed. So when social services got involved, about 7, took me out, gave me to my nan. She was a bit too old, so then I went from there to my auntie. But then I had all my back teeth had rotted out when I'd never had them brushed, because I'd had malnutrition as well. So that was quite traumatic. And then I had another 8 years in this house, which never felt like mine. So I never really had a family, although I lived in a family. It was like them and me. I never felt part of the family, although I did call my aunties. That was my dad's mum. My dad's mum, beg your pardon, my dad's sister. So I did call her mum, but it never felt real. I sort of knew it was my auntie. So
it never felt like home.
Yeah, I never really had a tribe. So I guess that's why part of my addictive cycle started. Well, I say the earliest memory was when my mum used to play prize bingo on Hastings Pier, and she would either give me a few coins to go down the other end of the pier so she could sort of focus on what she needed to do, or I'd just sort of like watch people put money in machines and things. So I got this that was my safe place, that was my comfort zone. So as soon as I got my own money, I was banging it in fruit machines and that was my first addiction, was gambling. And that was probably my primary throughout, to be honest. So it was drink, drugs and gambling for me. They were my primary addictions. So after I'd left, basically I got kicked out of there at the age of 16. So
were you in care? You were with your auntie?
Yeah, so it's like I was staying with them. It was a sort of like a care situation, if you like. Although they were family, I never felt part of the family. Do you know what I mean? It was just,
Yeah.
but I also think it's not necessarily from the genetic thing. I just think I was just different to them anyway. And there was a lot of criticism and there wasn't a lot of contact. You know, I don't remember being told. I mean, they might have said they loved me, but I don't remember it. You know, so.
And it's that sort of thing in those early days as a child. If you don't get told those things, that you're loved, that they're proud of you, all of those things to reaffirm that you are a good and decent human being, then you're missing that. You're gonna be lost.
Yeah. I just felt unlovable. I felt a bit worthless. I suppose there's part of me that still does, really. You know, but it just doesn't show up anywhere near as much as it used to. So I left there when I was 16, and then I just got a series of dead-end jobs. Say dead-end jobs, like catering jobs. And I worked in a travel agency for a bit, but it never really matched my capacity. I just knew I had something in me that needed to come out, but I just didn't have the right environment because it was always shrouded by drink and drugs. And, you know, whenever I started getting anywhere, I would drink myself back down again, you know, so I'd achieve some sort of level in life and I'd find a way to sabotage it because in later life, I realised because my low self-worth didn't feel that I deserved a nice life. So I would intentionally sabotage it. You know?
Yeah.
So my drinking career spanned my addictive careers, in full-blown addiction until I was 38. So I'm now 53. So that's 25 years. So it's about 25 years of addiction and 15 years of recovery work. And then I drank again, actually, after 10 years. So I was 10 years sober. So I lost all my family. Most people hit a rock bottom. You know, I had everything that I wanted and then hit my rock bottom when I was 38. So I went from everything to nothing in the space of a few months. And I think my head just flipped. I just said to myself, you've got to stop drinking, Bash, because if you don't stop, you need all the energy you can get. And this drinking and taking drugs is sapping that energy. So it was literally like a switch was flipped.
It was within you. Didn't matter what anybody around you said to you.
No, it didn't sink in.
It would have to be.
It's an inside job. That's what they say.
Yeah.
So that's my recovery journey began then. And then luckily I met somebody who had their own recovery journey in place. They'd been sober for about a year and they introduced me to 12 steps. And I did that for on and off for sort of 10 years. And then I drank again, got involved in a codependent relationship with somebody who was actively drinking. And I sort of knew, and a few other curveballs hit. And I sort of knew I was going to drink again. I knew about 6 months before. I thought it's coming. I could feel it. And it did. But only for a week, maybe 5 days. And,
well, how did you feel that you just could you feel like a weakness happening within you?
That's a good
because
question.
It must take so much strength if you've had an addiction just to never do it again. That is probably, I would say, one of the hardest things a person can ever try and do is to overcome addiction.
Yeah.
Because it's everywhere, isn't it? It's around us all the time.
Yeah, it's very, very available. And if you don't know, if you got no other solution to it, because they say drink is a poor solution to a problem, basically. So the problem, whatever it is, and it's usually managing feelings or managing overwhelm, managing chaos. Which and then we call that the panic button. Press the panic button. And I always say that people that panic are the ones that are not willing to face anxiety. So in the work that I do, I'm just showing people anxiety isn't going to kill you. You can manage anxiety. So I say to people, just you don't need to work from your feelings, work with your feelings. Just notice who, where they are, how they show up in you, where they show up, breathe through them, work with them, and what's the narrative behind it? What's the story going on behind it? And then what's the unmet need behind that story? How can you meet that need? Why do you need to reach out? Why can't you reach in? So that's the nature of some of the work that I do. But just back to where my journey went. So I hit that wall, and that's when I looked back and I thought, I was really surprised after 10 years of sobriety why I did. I knew I was going to, but I still couldn't work out why. So I checked in with a really good therapist, did a lot of work on myself, and then I started journaling as part of that work. And then as I wrote, the journaling turned into this sort of little sections, and I broke it down. I ended up breaking it down into this whole loads of different modules. And it turned into this program, and I showed a few people. And I said, "Oh, that's amazing! You've got to get out there." And I thought, well, I don't know, shall I? And so I did. So about 3 years ago, I think it was the 8th of April. What date today?
The 8th.
Is it? Well, it's near the 8th.
It is. It's
is
the
it
8th.
actually? Oh my God, I must get in touch with Sam today then. Yeah, so that
It's exactly the
bloody
8th
hell.
of April.
Wow. Yeah, so the 8th of April, 3 years ago, was when I took on my first client. That was for gambling. So I said, I found him on a gambling group because I was still smarting from my acting out, although, a couple of years had passed, I was still aware that it was still, rife and it was still in me. So, and I saw a post on Facebook and he was like, oh God, I've spent 36 grand, I haven't got it, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my family, I'm going to lose a girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And it was this real tragic message. So I sent him a private message. I said, look, I've just written this program. Do you want to give it a spin? It's not going to cost you anything. See how you get on. And he's like, yeah. He said, I'll do anything. He said, I haven't really got any money. I can't afford therapy anyway. So we went on this journey for the best part of 6 months. So I hadn't finished writing the program, funnily enough, but part of my journey was getting through this procrastination. So I wrote the last module. I knew I wanted 24 modules. So I wrote the last one because I thought, well, if I write the last one, then the others are going to follow. And then I thought, well, if I take somebody on, then I've got I've got to write it. So I made myself accountable. So it was a bit of a strategy involved there to counterbalance my procrastination. And we just worked through each module of the program. And as far as I know, he's still sober today. I will phone him today. So I'm really glad I've noticed today. So that was my first one. So I've tested the program since then. So then I got some funding and I tested on a couple of other people with drink and drug addiction. One of those people had basically 30 years of drink and drugs dependence under the belt. And they tried all sorts of things. Like they'd done 17 years of psychotherapy. They'd done the 12 steps. They'd done whatever they could do, whatever's available, GP, CGR, and nothing worked. For some reason, this program seemed to work for them. Because I think what happens is because it comes from my recovery journey as well. So it's very real. It's very present. It's very current. And I think to hold them in that space of non-judgment. So whatever anybody's done, I've done it. There's no part of me that's going to go, judge anybody. So they never feel judged. They always feel welcome. And I think each module, it opens up their avenues of thinking, and they're like, oh God, these revelation moments. Oh, that's what, oh God, it's my mum. And then, and as we work through it, it sort of wraps itself around people and they become supported in this new way of thinking, if you like. So a lot of it's, I'd say 90% of the work is nothing to do with actual addiction. It's just to do with that low self-worth. Yeah. Yeah.
So one of your modules is, and I think you say is the key to overcoming any addiction, and that is purpose.
Yeah, I say the opposite of addiction is purpose. And I think that's why when women get pregnant, it just switches.
Yeah, I don't want to smoke anymore. Before.
Yeah,
I fell pregnant with Molly, my eldest, and that was nearly 20 years ago.
Yeah, and was that a white knuckle ride when you start smoking, or was it like?
No, I didn't even think about it. I mean, but I don't really have an addictive personality. Right. I've got to say. And is that something you think is a real thing? An addictive personality, if you like, or would you say that's just something that's just thrown around?
I think it's more of a disposition. I think you could get I think it's a bit deeper than whether you've got addictive personality or not. I think it's more if you've got susceptibility to your environment, so if you've got sensitivity. So this is why you get two twins in the same environment, so that both parents might be using, and one will come out and just be totally rounded and balanced, and the other one will be in a squat taking drugs every weekend.
A little bit like people who, like you could take your childhood, take two different people, and you've chosen to overcome it and deal with it and not let it affect the person that you are today. Whereas other people, it may have just totally driven them down into, depression and.
Well, it did get me. There was no two ways about it, but I guess
you managed to actually get yourself out of that.
But I was still quite late. I mean, I was 38 when I came out, emerged, we say, and some of the people I'm working with today are like 21. I think one person I worked with was 19 years old. Having to realise at that age that something needs to change, otherwise it's going to ruin the rest of their life. It melts me every time when somebody contacts me and they're sort of anything less than 35. And that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it is amazing because it's such a huge hill to climb.
Yeah.
But your program as well. It's more than just like the 12 steps.
Yeah. Obviously,
you've got these 24 modules, but you're also there on the end of the phone for them as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you are completely, if they have any moments where they feel like they're going to relapse, or you're at the end of the phone.
Yeah.
So do you think that has a big part to play?
Yeah, I think so. Not many people use it, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, it's there. The service is there. I mean, it's a build service. I mean, it's part of it, but addiction doesn't always happen in that 1 hour. There's 168 hours in a week, and I only spend 1 hour a week with people. So for all of their bits and pieces to come out in that is a bit unrealistic. So there's work to do in between. But if they have what I call a hotspot, so it might be sort of Friday afternoon, they finish work, the sun's shining, they've had a good week, and it's like, oh God, how can I sabotage this?
Yeah.
Then they can send me a text usually within an hour. I'm like, okay, everything okay? She'll just book a quick phone call. We'll have a 10-minute chat, have a discussion around, what's going on for them, what's their addict telling them to do, what's their answer to the addict, because there's always separation. I don't call anybody an addict. I don't think it's very kind to be starters. If you had arthritis or something, I wouldn't call you an arthritis. If you've got IBS, I'm an IBS. You're not an IBS.
Yeah.
You've just got, that's part of you that's going on. So I say, no, you've got addiction. Addiction resides within you.
Yeah.
And I always say it's not your fault that it happened. So don't buy into all this shaming that's happened in your life. That's not your fault. But now you've got an awareness of it. You've now got a responsibility to yourself and those that you love to do something about it. So then we can start becoming accountable and maybe saying to the odd person, look, I've stopped drinking, because the more people you tell you're not doing it, you're creating accountability to it.
Yeah.
And then we go through where did it come from? For me, it's 99% of the time, it's some sort of childhood trauma. So, and it's not necessarily what happened, it's how you experienced it. So like I said, you'll get two children having exactly the same childhood, but if the child in question has got a real sensitivity to them, and they're a deeper feeler. And this is the other thing people don't understand about people with addiction. They think that they're insensitive, they're narcissistic, but they're not. They're using drink and drugs to medicate their sensitivities, but it also dumbs down and medicates their empathy for other people as well. So they genuinely lose total touch of the impact that their choices are having on other people. But to be fair, it's not their choices. There's a choice. They're unconscious choices they're making. So my responsibility to people as well is to say, well, there's your unconscious thoughts. That there's your unconscious. That's where your complexes lie, all your shadows, your addictions, all the low self-worth. That lies in there. We can look at that. We can move their thinking up to their higher self. So your higher self wants good for you, to make the right choices and for you to grow and to learn and to self-actualize, and to live in servitude for others. That's my understanding of purpose, is to find out what really burns, what's burning, there's always something. I think we've all got something in us. And it might be something really simple. There might be been a lollipop lady or something like that. I don't know, whatever.
It doesn't have to be those careers that society has put on a pedestal. That we all go, oh, it has to be a film star, it has to be a football player, Premier League. Everybody who makes the world tick is important. We're all important, no matter how big your role is. It's whatever you feel like you were put on this planet to do. And for some people, that's really, I was really lucky when from the minute I can remember, I knew exactly why I was put on this planet, and that was to perform, to dance, to sing, to act. That was my passion and purpose. And I felt so incredibly lucky. Even when I was a teenager, I felt incredibly lucky to know what I wanted to do with my life, because that's a really hard thing as well, isn't it? To know if you haven't got that and you're going from one job to another, and you can't ever find that purpose. You're a bit lost, really. So it's a purpose, definitely. And I'm seeing a lot of, and it's changing for people as well, especially as people are becoming more aware of their own intuition and listening to what's really inside. We're finding people are coming out of, go, oh, actually, I'm really good at that, and that's what we're seeing at Hope a lot. It's really amazing. Yeah,
they're sort of stepping into themselves, aren't they? Rather than avoiding themselves.
Yeah. And you're a big part of the community here. You came to the music festival, and then I can't remember which event it was, and you were in the kitchen all of a sudden. I was like, oh, it's Bash. Bash is in the kitchen and he's cooking, and you said to me, I've got real OCD, so I do like to, when I'm here, I'm in the moment and I'm totally organised. And whenever we see that Bash is on the rotor, it's like, oh, thank God. So, all right, guys, Bash is on the rotor. It's okay. Everything's going to be organised and brilliant, and there won't be any chaos while Bash is around.
It's interesting to say that, because that's the OCD in me. I've got to do things a certain way. It's getting like order is really important for me. Although my missus wouldn't say that. She'd say the opposite. But, in my head, the order has to be so. And that's an interesting point, because when I'm working with people, I'd say, look, that your addict energy, there's addiction, OCD, ADHD, ADD, they're all cousins of each other. I don't like the word ugly cousins. I think they're just cousins. Let's keep it at that. And so what I get people to do is to purpose their addictive energy. So rather than, if you leave it, right, I can guarantee you, if you leave your addict energy, it will purpose itself, and not in a good way. So what I do is say, look, you've got this energy. It's really, really powerful. Look around you, what you've done. Look at what you've achieved using a lot of this energy you've got, and let's purpose that energy. So that's what, and I always add the analogy of Kung Fu. What makes Kung Fu such a successful martial art is you're using the opponent's energy against itself. So you're using the addict energy. So you're getting, rather than get obsessed about what you're going to score at the weekend, you're getting obsessed about, when we're going to meet at the weekend, how am I going to build healthy connections with other people? Am I going to go to a 12-step meeting? Nutrition, making sure you exercise, being kind to yourself, having cold showers, whatever it takes. I always say to people, like, look out the window, the world's your medicine cabinet. You know what medicine you need. So you need 20 minutes of exercise, you have that, but listen to your body. If you need a bit more, have a bit more. If you need a bit less, have a bit less. So get in tune with yourself. And I always use the word intimacy quite a lot, intimacy. So with people with addiction, they by nature, they create trauma bonds, because all the negative energy from childhood is out there looking for more negative energy. So because it was born from negative energy, it's looking for more negative energy to thrive on. So, I'll create arguments with people or whatever it is, let's go and party together. But really, let's just go and get messed up. Let's go and self-sabotage. Let's go and self-harm. That's what I'm actually saying. My pain bodies are saying that. But yeah, that's quite a lot of the nature of the work that I do.
Yeah. I'm finding you gave a fantastic talk here. And then afterwards we had a little therapy session, a group of us, which I really enjoyed. But your talk is, I love the title, Addiction Isn't a Dirty Word.
No.
I love that title because, again, it's just allowing people to feel that they're not going to be judged if you have got some sort of problem. We're not here to judge you. Yeah. We're here to help you. And let's all be open about this. Yeah. Because we want people to heal. I mean, how alcohol is legal when it is one of the most detrimental things out there. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm not teetotal, but
every addiction
I've seen it destroy people in my own family, and I've seen the effect of what it can have on people. And it's legal for a reason, because they know that.
Make a lot of money.
They make a lot of money on it, and they know that it brings people's vibrational levels down. It's a very depressant substance. And we've got quite a few people here that I've never known so many people that are actually alcohol free and have been through addiction as I have in the last 3 years. Yeah, I think a lot of people are becoming really self-aware of the detrimental effect that it can have on them. That particular substance in question. Yeah. So addiction isn't a dirty word. You did it here. Is that something that you think you'll take and do somewhere else as well?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I'd like to do another one here in June. Yeah. But then.
And the one in June is going to be even more exciting.
It is.
We're going to have a conscious disco.
Yeah. Yeah. So 6 decades of floor fillers. Yeah. That's the plan. And everybody that comes is going to put into a hat, if you like, 10 or 15 of their favourite floor fillers. So when you show up, you're going to, shake your booty a bit. Yeah.
And we're going to have some lovely, gorgeous drinks as well.
Some little punches and things, energy drinks,
juices, but good ones.
Good ones, yeah.
Not the monster stuff.
No.
None of that monster stuff.
These are going to be homemade, based on guaranas and cacaos and things like that. Exactly. Nature's energy drinks. Yeah. And we can and just have a brilliant time without the need of anything to alter your beautiful mind state as it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So addiction is a dirty word. You're going to go around, give that talk in other places as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I've shaped it quite nicely now, so it's quite portable.
And you found some people's recovery has been quite incredible that you've been working with, and we had a few of them at the talk as well. Yeah. To the point where they've been at their absolute lowest. Yeah. I think one lady couldn't even afford to buy food or anything like that. She wasn't working, but yet you just, I don't know, you just switched something on in her, and she just suddenly went out and got a job to pay for her sessions.
She went out and got a cleaning job. So based on the back of 10 years of unemployment and 10 years of depression, 10 years of using, 10 years of antidepressants, so the prescription drugs as well. And she's like, well, I can't pay. And I'm like, okay, well, why don't you get a job? And she went, I'd never thought of that. So she did. She went and got a cleaning job and paid for therapy. And she's I think she's 6 months sober now. Yeah, brilliant. And a lot of people try and give me the credit for it. And it's like, look, listen, I'm here for an hour. You do the other 167 hours in between. So give yourself the credit, you know?
Yeah. And that's absolutely remarkable. And it just goes to show that it's possible for anybody to overcome any addiction. It's absolutely 100% possible for them to do that. So what's your daily, I mean, would you say it's something that you deal with every day?
Yeah.
Is it always there?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that? Do you have a certain routine that you do? Do you meditate?
Yeah, so for me, it's like a prophylactic. I always say to people, look, you're not going to get cured of addiction. So don't think you're going to be 5 years sober. All of a sudden you go into a bar and start drinking. Your addict will give the illusion of control for maybe a couple of weekends and, I've got this cracked, I'm not an addict anymore, blah, blah, blah. Although you're not an addict in the first place. But no, it's a daily practice. And that's the one thing I learned from when I went out and drank again after 10 years. I need a daily practice. You know, so for me, and it's not every single day I have to do certain things, but, on most days I have to, I have at the moment, no sugar, I'm having cold showers every day, meditating most days, breath work definitely every day, because that can be done. You've got to breathe anyway, so you might as well work with your breath while you're doing it. So I've probably had 30 conscious breaths since we've been in this environment today, and it feels great. Everyone feels really good, what feels bad about that?
No, I know. So many people do not take a full breath. They shallow breathe, and it's just so bad for you to just keep shallow breathing. You really do need to breathe right down into your diaphragm.
Yeah. So, making sure I drink plenty of water. So there's my artesian spring water there, which I have to take. It's part of my sort of daily regimen, if you like. Yeah. Sleep, massive. So we can go without food and water even for 24 hours and we can sort of feel fine, but go without sleep for 24 hours, into a bear,
like a zombie.
So that's a constant thing with the sleep. Nutrition, I'm always looking at that. Working with people, that again, that's a great prophylactic for me. I still get my addicts are still there, my demons are still there, and they chat to me, and then I have to answer with, how can I play with you guys and then do the job that I do, so you just stay over there and do what you want to do, but we're gonna work in this way today. I know we had some fun in the past, but we're not doing that anymore. It's not fun, it's an illusion of fun. So
it's talking to yourself and being really, really knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Internally.
And knowing I'm not that voice. That's the thing. So that voice is not me. My essential sense of me is the one that can observe that voice and observe where that voice is coming from. And am I going to take instruction from that voice anymore? No, I don't have to. I can have a conversation with it and say, well, based on past experience, where did that get us before? And I suppose that brings us on to the next point, is where we think. So it's not how addicts think, people with addiction think, it's where they think from. We think from our frontal orbital cortex when we're in the thick of it, which thinks and it acts. There's no simulation. So all the simulation happens in the frontal lobe, so that's why it's like, oh, well, it's a nice day. Oh, she used, okay. There's no who are we going to affect negatively? How much is it going to cost? These don't come into play, which is why what makes addiction such an easy path to take. It's very, very easy. I teach people to have that conversation. It's not you. Let's just shut it down, and your brain will do what you tell it to do. So if your addict's going, hey, shall we? You've had 2 weeks sober. And it's like, let's have this conversation later. And it goes off into a corner somewhere.
I do the same thing with my students. If they're obviously with acting and performing, they get quite nervous sometimes. And then they start to get that negative voice that comes in and starts going, oh, you can't do it. And especially with my students at the moment, I'm getting a lot of them to sing. Some of them have never sung before. And they're really shy. Yeah. And I'm just, you just need to tell that negative voice to go away. Yeah. It's got no place. It's got, it doesn't have any effect on you at all, as long as you just tell it to go away and leave you alone. It's, you know, it's not part of who you are. It's just something that's just, the brain can be so powerful, can't it? And,
And well, it's trying to protect you as well. It's trying to stop you from setting yourself up. But really, it's also a limiting belief at the same time, isn't it? But it's how it's your relationship. And that brings me on to my next point, is when I first start working with people, I say, let's just take this word addiction and just move it to one side for a minute. So if we just replace it with unhealthy relationship with, so have you got an unhealthy relationship with alcohol? So rather than saying, like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how does it affect you negatively? You know, how does it affect your finances, relationships, your mental health? And like, oh God, yeah. Oh, I've definitely got addiction then. And all of a sudden they can admit to that, but they can't admit to being an addict because they don't drink at 6 a.m.
I was going to say, some people will only say that somebody very close to me, I think, never thought they were an addict because they didn't, or had addiction, because they didn't drink from the moment they woke up to the moment they went to bed. That was their definition.
Yeah, well, it wasn't theirs, it's the addict's definition.
Yeah.
So the addict was going, you're all right, you don't need this, I'm not here.
Yeah.
And then, oh, okay. It's the same things as the narratives. You know, you buy this, you can either buy the narrative or you can challenge it. This is what I do. I get people to tune into their spirit, you know, and the spirit sort of, you know, I think the spirit and the soul basically leave you. If you don't tend to it, I think the soul's sole purpose is to feel love in all its forms. And if that love doesn't show up because you're blocking it with drink and drugs, it's just going to do one, you know, and you're going to be soulless. And this is what I think depression is, you know. And I think a lot of the root of depression is unhealthy relationship with your own thoughts. Not to do with serotonin uptake, to do with you haven't learned to have a healthy relationship with your own thoughts. You know.
And talk to yourself.
Yeah, talk to yourself, you know. Talk outwardly if you have to. I do sometimes.
I do all the time. I'm always talking to myself.
Yeah. But who are you
but I
talking
think
to?
it's healthy. I think it's a good thing. It's not, you know, it's good to be a little bit crackers, as we said.
Yeah.
But that's, I suppose, the difference between an obsession and an addiction. It's looking at it in that way. Is your relationship with this particular thing healthy? Does it have a detrimental effect on your life, on your finances, on your... It could be because your life is a big wheel, isn't it? There's so many segments to it, you know, and you might be going, oh, no, I'm fine here. But then, oh, look there, it's really, really having a negative effect on that part of your life. Then that's something you need to really address. And if you know that, do it. Yeah. Don't wait. Yeah. You know, seize the day and get on top of it. It's like anything, you know, if you're feeling ill, have a little look, listen to your own body, take responsibility for yourself, and start to
show up.
And start to be present with yourself. Absolutely.
And that's the main part of the journey, is showing people how to show up for themselves. So in childhood, a lot of time the parents they just didn't have the capacity to show up for the child, you know, so they couldn't. And my understanding of the best parent is the one that leans into the needs of their children. They were so busy trying to lean into their own needs in an ineffective way with drink and drugs, they couldn't lean into the needs of their children. So when a child's not receiving that love and respect and kindness, they can't stop loving their parents, so they end up stop loving themselves. And that's the birth of low self-worth. That's when it all starts. That's the pivotal point. So it's that childhood trauma, and then there's that low self-worth, and then the addiction will just sit on top of that, and then the behaviour sit on top of that addiction. Because we've never been taught to have like really healthy relationships. So consequently, as adults, we don't know how to have a healthy relationship. So the best relationship anybody can have with alcohol, for example, is just not to have it, you know. Yeah. Because it's literally like inviting a narcissist in your door. You know, we could take every other addictive substance and behaviour on the planet and lump it together. It's still nowhere near the negative impact that just alcohol has, yet that's the one that's legal. Yeah. Yeah. Shocking.
It is shocking. It is shocking. Absolutely shocking. And are there any other practices or any other things that you do in your daily life, or that you have done? Any other experiences that have?
That's a good question. I think healthy, like practicing healthy relationships with self and others. So being with myself in the garden with my feet on even if it's frosty, bare feet, grounding. Yeah. And just listening to the birds, and just being with myself and being okay with myself. Because I think if I can't be in the garden happy in my own skin, I can't really be happy in my own skin in the company of others. Yeah. You know, that will just project out as an insecurity. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the practices. And
it's amazing how many people actually can't be on their own.
Yeah, because they don't know how to cope with the noise.
Company.
Yeah, it's because they can't cope with a natter that's going on. But if you learn to have a healthy relationship with the natter, and some of that healthy relationship might be, look, with certain thoughts, I say, look, just let him in the front door and let him out the back door. You don't have to make him a cup of tea.
Don't have to sit down with them and serve them cake.
Serve them cake. Let's crack a bottle. You don't have to do that.
Just hello, hi, yeah, bye.
Thanks for the reminder that I used to, engage with you, but now we don't. We have a different relationship now.
I love that. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And how is your relationship now with your mum? Is that something that are you good with your mum now? Oh no,
she passed. Yeah, so my dad passed at 3, mum passed at 11, but I hadn't actually seen her for 4 years. So I can't say she passed out of my life, to be honest.
No.
Katy Jo, she was sort of barely there.
Yeah.
So I obviously cried when she died, but it was more of a dutiful cry than I'm really going to miss you, because there was nothing to miss, really. It was everything to be grateful for, really, because I was talking to my partner the other day, and she said, how do you think you'd have been if your mum had stayed alive? And I said, probably messed up. I think that's part of the reason my older brother's messed up, because obviously had a longer relationship than me. And I guess I'm quite grateful to, I said earlier on, I don't remember being told that I was loved, but I'm really grateful for the space I had in my childhood. I was able to just explore. And I guess that's what's made me today quite a radical thinker. I think outside the box, So these, like the 12 steps, and I'm not knocking the 12 steps at all, because I actively encourage people to do it. But because I can think from different places, I think I'm undiagnosed ADHD. I could see that, that's not working for me. So if it's not working for me, maybe it's not working for other people. So I'd have the conversation. Do you think this needs updating a little bit? Okay, well, I can update it in my program, because we've got a new way of looking at it. So there's an incorporation of all the different sort of strategies and learnings in addiction. I've read untold amount of books, podcasts, going to 12-step meetings, talking to people with addiction, and everything sort of like clicks into place. And it's my program's there, and it's sort of the foundation of it is there, but it's ever evolving. If somebody comes in, and I think somebody came in, about a year ago, and they said something about, my recovery discovery. I thought, that's brilliant, I'm going to use that. So I've written it into the program, so it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, you're constantly updating it.
I think you've got to, because we're changing. As humans are evolving, so our program's got to evolve with us. We're
evolving pretty quickly as well at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah,
Things
massive.
Are changing.
This last 3 years, phenomenal.
Yeah, these last 3 years have been pretty...
what a gift. Thanks, Klaus Schwab. Thank you, Boris Johnson. Yeah.
I think you're the third person on this podcast already to have said, what a gift.
Yeah. Can't believe
what a gift it was. Yeah. Because your programme, how old is it?
3 years. Yeah. That was the first client, was 3 years ago. I suppose it's only the last year that it's been really active. It's been sort of like, I've had a few here and there. I just changed the structure a bit about a year ago. So now I'm seeing about 12, 14 people a week on a weekly basis.
That's busy. You're busy.
Yeah, it's enough for me.
Yeah.
But, same as I know I've got my addict that lives in me, I could probably do 16, but then I would lose my friends and family time at the weekend.
Yeah.
So it's really important for me to keep the homeostasis in place, because that's one thing people are good at with addiction, is tipping the balance. Because when you tip the balance, you get chaos. And when you get chaos, you get overwhelmed. When you get overwhelmed, you pick up a drink. So your addict's constantly on that seesaw, trying to throw you off balance. So, and it's just noticing that, being awareness. And whatever you're aware of, when you're noticing something in yourself, it's the same thing when you notice a bee on a flower or something like that. It's the same point of awareness, the same peaceful place. So everybody that I work with now, when they come into the program, they're coming in with chaos and noise and chatter. And it's actually a guy that started 9 days ago, literally like talking to another person. And I said, how's your first week been? It's his first week off of Class A drugs for like 18 months or something. First weekend he hasn't done it. He said, I just feel so different. I've got this whole new way of looking at life and myself. Wow. And he said, I woke up on Saturday morning and I thought, right, I'm going to get a crate of beer. And then he caught himself at it. He said, I forgot everything we'd done, the past 2 days, all the paperwork I sent through and we'd done an hour session. And he said, and he went, I got scared. I realised this fear came over me. And I realised that I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. But he'd never had the opportunity to step back into awareness and see what was going on. And I always say to people, awareness is your best friend. If you're going to need to check in anywhere, check in with your awareness and trust it, because it knows. We all know, as a child, If you write on that wall, that's naughty. Don't do that. It's right and wrong.
It's in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know,
but for
right and wrong
adults,
straight away, it's written there.
it's congruence. I always teach people congruence. You know, so do your feelings and thoughts match your environment? So if it doesn't, there's an incongruence going on there. If it does, great. You know, just roll with it. But it allows people to say, oh, so where do I get that? Why am I feeling uncomfortable? There's no reason to feel uncomfortable. I'm not being chased by a lion, so I'm acting like it. Why do I feel like it? Once you look beyond that you've analysed the feeling, then you've turned it down with a bit of breath work. So you're not sort of 7 or 8 out of 10 because you can't hear it's too chaotic. Turn it down with a bit of breath work and meditation to a 3 or 4. So what's the narrative behind that? You know, what's your unconscious telling you? Oh, okay. So what's the unmet need behind that? How can I meet that need? So it teaches people how to process feelings and their thoughts rather than go the other way, feeling drink, feeling drug. No, feeling, let's have a look, let's just face some of this anxiety. Let's be willing to face a bit of discomfort. And that's what the cold showers are about as well. You know, when you put yourself in that cold shower in the morning, you're showing up as you're willing to face a bit of discomfort. So when another bit of discomfort...
Still not managed to do a cold shower bash.
But when the discomfort shows up in a different way later in the day, it's like, oh yeah, I can do discomfort. You know, I'm used to that.
Yeah.
So it's being willing to show up for that 2 minutes of...
I read a book about the infinite self.
Okay.
And he talks a lot about that, actually, about being able to be there, show up and endure something that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that is a resilience. And
well, you're creating a stoic sense of self, aren't you? So I study a bit of Marcus Aurelius's work. And again, something I teach people, you need something robust. You need something that's going to stand the test of time. This is self-sustained sobriety now. You know, you're not just, this isn't a ride, you get off. This is the rest of your life, you know.
Yeah. And what a gift to find that, finally realise that and find yourself in that place where you are going to be kind to yourself and actually, you know, look at what's good for you and go, you know, rather than, a reward at the end of the day or have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
No, a reward at the end of the day, have a beautiful homemade tea, you know, your lovely herbal tea.
Yeah. Go and play a board game with one of your kids. You know, the family that plays together stays together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to instill board games here and card games and just bringing together and being with each other without electronic devices as well that can be not so good for the...
Not so instant gratification.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the marshmallow. I don't know if you know about the marshmallow experiment.
No,
So yes, I think the 3-4-year-old kids, and they gave them a marshmallow, put it in front of them and said, well, you can have this marshmallow now, or I'll be back in 5 minutes, and you can have 2 marshmallows. So they studied these kids, they went out, came back, so I don't know what the difference was, but some of them took the marshmallow, instant gratification, and some of them waited. And they carried on studying these kids, the ones that, you know, that are taking the instant reward and waited. And the ones that waited, they didn't need the instant gratification, or they were willing to take the discomfort of waiting, achieve so much more in adult life, just over a simple little experiment like that.
Wow. That must have been, they must have followed them then over quite a few years, maybe decades, to see how that, and that's something that you're born with.
Well, not necessarily, because something could have happened traumatic from, I mean, like Gabor Mate, for example, his trauma happened at the age of 1 when he was taken from his mum. So that I don't think you've got enough consciousness to build a story around that trauma.
But it's still there.
It is experienced, yes. Yeah. So it's definitely a felt perception rather than a conscious perception.
You think, So you think that every child that maybe if they hadn't had any trauma, rather than it be a personality trait, if you like, you know, like some of us are impatient. You know, that's not necessarily a trauma-based emotion. That's just like a personality trait. If you're a bit impatient, some kids might. Do you know what I mean?
It is. But then it's your relationship with patience, isn't it? So, you know, how does it serve you to be impatient? That's the question. So, like Carl Jung would say, like, you know, to get a larger sense of self, you've got to ask larger questions. But rather than just say, right, I'm impatient and I'm an impatient person, you've basically defined yourself as that. So that's going to cause chaos in your life, and being impatient doesn't serve you or the other person well. It causes cortisol, causes adrenaline. You know, it affects the other people because they feel like they've got to run on your time scale. Yeah. So it's your responsibility to grow through that, isn't it? And say, well, where did I get that from? You know, if it doesn't serve me well, why am I doing it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. bit like being late. I've got to get on top of that.
Okay, right, okay.
Being late is not a good trait.
Right, so you're late.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have, well, not for everything,
No.
but I can be incredibly late.
Okay.
I'm known with my friends as
So is that because you take
late.
on too much?
I blame, yes, yeah. Yeah, it's that. I mean, I blame my mum.
Right. Go on then.
She's always late.
So she's always late. So it's a learned behaviour.
So it's
right?
learned behaviour. She's always
Okay.
late, so I'm always late. But no, I mean, I think it's because I always go, okay, I've got time to squeeze that in. Oh, I've got 10 minutes, I'll squeeze that in. And then I always end up taking too long doing something.
Okay.
I always think
Yeah.
I've got more time than I have.
Okay, so your relationship with time is unhealthy then? We can say.
Yeah.
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 So how could you improve that relationship with time?
Well, I suppose, I don't know, really, Bash.
And that's something to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So
it
I'll put you on the
is,
spot,
it is,
sorry.
It is. No, it is something I need to sort out.
Yeah.
Because I can be on time. I know I can be because I was on time today, I think. So I can be on time, but it's something that I've just always had. And and I know it drives some people insane.
And looking
Especially
deeper
my
into it, if you're
husband.
taking X amount, let's say you've got space for 5 jobs a day, but you take on 7, that's a way of not being kind to yourself, isn't it? You're putting yourself under undue stress.
Yeah. I'm
And it's
good
a
at
therapy
that.
session, isn't it? Go on.
Yeah,
This is
I'm
your
good
gig.
at that. Yeah, no, I must stop that actually. No, but it's so incredible how much we have all got to learn about ourselves. How much, baggage or dark emotional work, whatever we've got to do within
We've all got
ourselves. And
It's a lifelong process.
it's a lifelong process for everybody. Not whether you have an addiction or you don't.
Yeah.
We all have got demons and things that we've got to work through, and we can do this. And the lovely thing about us all coming together, the gift, it's bringing people with such incredible skills and knowledge, and everyone's helping each other. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and this is the other point, living life in servitude. I had this conversation with my partner the other day, and she said, I don't want to live in servitude. What do you mean? It sounds like, I said, does it sound like slavery to you? And she's like, yeah. And I said, no, it's not like that.
No.
I said, if you look at a tree, living in purpose, its purpose is to, not just to feed itself, but it's a nice little house for an owl. Insects live there, and I don't know if they sleep or not, but, if you was a tree, you'd sleep well at night knowing you've, lived in servitude to nature and you're part of that symbiosis. And that's what I'm saying, you've got, where's your role in this in the symbiosis of life? Where can you offer healing, to yourself and others? And that's your ideal purpose, isn't it, right? So if you find out what you're really passionate about and you can deliver that to help people find their passion and their purpose, what better way to live,
Yeah.
I'd do this job if I didn't have to work. So that's your perfect job, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do find that that's, I would say, a good counter to depression as well, because when you give, you feel incredible.
Feel good about yourself.
You feel amazing when you're giving and you're serving others and you're doing things just out of the goodness of your heart. That there's no better feeling than that.
Well, that's one of the other things I do. Try and do one thing a day, unconditional kindness. So there's your bottle of Purdy's today. Yeah. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big.
Yeah, but just
so I can do one thing a day.
And in today's society, the generations coming through, it's all about the I, isn't it? They're being conditioned.
They're born
to
with an
think
iPad in their
about
hand.
I.
They're born with instant gratification. Me, that dopamine's for me. That dopamine's for me. So they're going to get self-centered. Nothing to do with the kids, all to do with us lot that have given them our generation, that have given them these iPads. And so on societal terms, we've had to, because there's so much pressure to perform and be some sort of amazing social creature that we haven't got the time, or we haven't made the time to be with our families. And that's where our purpose is, to be the best parent that we can be. And that's another one that comes up in the therapy practice that I do is how we can be our own best teacher, our own best therapist, our own best friend, our own best parent, So rather than, let's say you haven't got parents, what would your best parent say to you right now if you were in the process of buying a car or something? Like, where to get it from, check the tyres, has it got an MOT? Well, say this to yourself. Why do you need a parent to say that? You know it all. And it's accessing people's power. And talking about power, a lot of people don't know what that is. When I say, what does it mean to step in your own power? I'm really good at running. I'm like, no. I mean, the power. What's the power before the running? And the power, my understanding, is in the Christian faith, although I'm not Christian, I'm not aligned to any religion. I like little bits of each one. So and the Christians say that God made us in his own image and he's a great creator. So our superpower is creation. So before you became a runner, how did you set yourself up? How did you train? What kit did you buy? You created all that. That's your power. Your superpower is creation. How are you going to create yourself out of this unfortunate path of addiction that you found yourself in? You didn't choose that. If you got a 6-year-old, we could wind back time to your 6-year-old self and say, look, hands up who wants to be, a recovering addict or, to be a cocaine user. Well, I don't want to do that. Bad, And it's that sense of being unloved, going back to childhood. People don't like themselves when they come in the door. They've got a real sort of low self-worth. That's what the basis of addiction is. And I say, look, let's just go back to just a little bit. I'm not going to hypnosis, but go back to, if you can imagine what you look like as a 1-year-old baby, a 1-day-old baby, in that little perspex. Just look at yourself and are you worth loving? Yeah. I said, what's the difference between then and now? You're still the same person. You're worth loving. There's little tweaks like this, and all of a sudden you've got people tuning into themselves and liking who they see, liking who they hear, and it's just a beautiful thing. It's lovely to watch people unfold like that.
I bet it must be so incredibly rewarding to do the job that you do.
Yeah, understatement of the century, that.
And it resonated with me massively when you said that was our purpose, is to create.
Yeah.
And I totally believe that. That's what we do best as human beings, is create.
Yeah.
And you said that you don't really resonate with one religion, but you pick all of them.
Yeah, I harvest
little bits from this and that.
I like a bit of Buddhism, a bit of Taoism, Hinduism. I love them all. I think they're great. I think the whole point of a religion, is my understanding, is for your moral compass and your ethical codes to make the right choices. But once I've sort of tuned into people, my religion is based on maybe 12 words. So for me to make a decision, I don't need to go into a scripture or a psalm or anything. I'm not saying this is a better way, but it just works for me. I've got ADHD and there's too much noise in the Quran. I like looking at it, or the Torah. I can look at it, but to get involved in it that's too heavy for me. So it's kindness, compassion, empathy, patience. If I'm being these things in that choice, that's good for me. I can roll with that. And equally the other way around, if I'm in the process of sending a rant text to somebody, I can pause and I can go, is this kind, what I'm doing right now? Is this considerate? Am I being patient? And am I being understanding? Am I being compassionate to them? Am I being empathetic to what's going on for them? Or am I just making this all about me? And then I can stop and I can just delete that text. Or I can revisit it later and rehash it into something a bit nicer, using one of the other modules, which is non-violent communication, how we can communicate in a healthy way to each other. So the whole program unfolds into just a bit of a, like you open there's a light on and flashing on the dashboard. What's that? Oh, you go into the glove compartment. There's this great little manual there. So it's basically a little manual. So whatever you're feeling at the moment, whatever in any moment, there's always it says an app for this, an app for that. Back in the days of iPhones when they first came out, there's a module for this, there's a module for that. So there's a really sort of intense module about relationship. And because the basis of it is unhealthy relationship, I've got to show people what I think a healthy relationship looks like. And it's like, well, what does it look like? Well, it feels good. Well, what makes it feel good? Is there trust in there? Is there loyalty? Is there understanding? Is there passion? So it's all broken down into about 20 different pieces. So we can have an open, healthy discussion and communication on the study of relationship. And as we have this, it unfolds in them. They're having a healthy relationship themselves. So that trauma bond now turns into intimacy. They're learning about themselves and they're liking themselves. When I say to people, you might not like yourself very much, we're in early recovery. As this program unfolds, you'll be the most interesting book you've ever read. And it always comes back positive, that one. They're like, yeah, I really like this.
That's beautiful. That is a beautiful thing to say to somebody who's, really at the beginning of a really hard hill to climb. So there's only one of you.
Yeah, at the moment. Yeah. I wish there was
There will
more.
only ever be one of you. But as you say, you're at your capacity of people that you can help with this ReBourne Recovery Program. Is there any plan to train any other people up to be able to deliver the program?
Yeah, it's a process like anything else. I'm just waiting for the universe to throw some people in my direction. I've got a couple.
Ask it shall deliver.
Yeah, I've got a couple of people that are waiting to do their, so they've obviously got to do their study outside before they take the program and deliver. They've done it and they've it's worked for them. They're sober and they're happy. And so it's not just the sobriety, it's they're happy in their own skins. You know, they can go out knowing that if there's some adversity, they've got the tools to manage it without picking up a drink or a drug, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like it. In an ideal world, Katy Jo, I would love this to be as sort of epidemic as what addiction is, as in the cure of it, you know, and realising there is a way out. And it's not a white knuckle ride. It's a really nice, lovely, beautiful process. It's gentle, it's kind. Yeah.
Do you feel like somebody who could deliver the training, do you think that they would have to have been through the addiction themselves? Or do you think they could be somebody that has never been an
That's a good question.
addict, if you like?
Ideally, yes. That'd have to be my first choice without sounding discriminatory. But equally, I think you can teach anybody how to be kind and compassionate, right?
Yeah.
And even on my own journey, it was my ex-wife that said that I had an issue with empathy. And that was when I sort of started having a relationship with the universe as well. You know, there's something bigger than me, something outside of me that's got a lot more power than I have. And I thought, well, I don't feel like I've got empathy, but I'll explore it. I don't like where it's come from because as far as I'm concerned, you're a bloody narcissist. So why would I listen to you, you know? But then why would I not listen to the universe? You know, if the universe is delivered. So the way I saw it was that I'd have to park my ego to hear that. So there was a lesson and a lesson on top of that. And as it transpired, yeah, I had an issue with empathy, you know, and when I explored it a bit deeper, because I class myself as a kind person, a giving person. That doesn't mean I've always been empathetic to the needs of others or what's going on for others. But I think what happened is in my childhood, because I didn't feel that my caregivers were empathetic to my needs, I learned to switch off. I just made it about me and getting my needs met. But I met my needs in an unhealthy way with drink and drugs. It's all about getting high, getting out of my head. I didn't know what was going on in my head, so I had to get out of it. But now I can quite happily sit in my head. Sometimes it's a bit uncomfortable, but there's a lot goes on. But it's all right, you know.
But you can have a chat with them and
I can have a chat.
Don't give them a cup of tea.
No.
Definitely don't offer any cake.
No cake today.
Back door.
Back door. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, thank you so much for being on a positive podcast today, Bash.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
That's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, darling.